Hi, everybody. Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny, actually cold and gloomy and snowy Colorado. It was 90 degrees yesterday, 90. And then I was told that there's going to be a snowstorm. I said, what the hell is going on? Snowstorm after a 90-degree day? So I had to go outside to the raised bed gardens and quickly throw blankets and tarps and plastic over the tomatoes, try to get them covered as fast as possible so that they don't die. Colorado weather. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. But you know what? No rain nor snow. Always go to work. It helps that I live nearby the office, but it's good to be in the office, nice and warm and cozy. And also, if I get trapped here, I have a nice couch to sleep on. So it is September 8th, 2020. Pretty crazy year. A lot of crazy things going on. Massive progress on the Cardano side, as always. Interesting things on the ETC. Politics, of course, are asinine and crazy. I couldn't help but notice today that the media is now saying that 260,000 people are going to get coronavirus because of Sturgis. That's the story. Although the actual reported amount is 260 people, but 260,000 people, 400,000 person gathering, will get coronavirus. Now, you see, one of the funny things is if you've been trained in statistics, you can actually use the same models and extrapolate the same things that the media seems to be doing. And let's do that. The BLM protests and all of these mass gatherings, these woke gatherings around the United States, if we were to use the same models the media is using for Sturgis on them, that would create between 1 to 3 million new cases of coronavirus. But these are necessary and endorsed. At a 1% CFR, that would kill 10 to 30,000 people. 10 to 30,000 people, if these models are to be believed, are a direct consequence of the woke mob. And those are acceptable deaths, mostly amongst minorities. Pretty amazing that we live in this time and people say these things and do these things. They're immune to facts and logic. They're immune to arguments. It's political sides at this point. And either I agree with you or disagree with you. And I cannot tell you how many times I've been told to shut the hell up by members of my own community because they politically disagree with some of the things I say. It's amazing. These are numbers. If you want to believe them, okay. We're supposed to believe them with Sturgis, but we're not supposed to believe them with these protests on the other side. And they say, oh, but we're so safe. We wear masks. We were told safety first. 93% are peaceful protests. The 7% that aren't, they're really concerned about safety when they're setting things on fire and running from the police and tear gas is coming. That's their highest priority is social distancing. Doesn't look like social distancing to me. But anyway, what the hell do I know? I'm just some guy in Colorado. All right, let's talk about Cardano. Every now and then I have to throw in the Corona stuff because it does matter. It has a huge impact on our personal liberty and our ability to talk about things. And at some point I won't be allowed to because the woke mob will take that from me too. Okay. Cardano. Where are we at? Things are moving in the right direction. We're making some great progress. We'll have a lot to say about Goguen towards the end of the month at the product update. So do attend that. Every single dimension where we can accelerate things to deliver more to market faster, I am personally getting involved in to make sure that that happens. Lately, Daedalus is the target of the Eye of Sauron, and we're seeing if we can parallelize a lot of the work streams there to include lots of new, exciting, cool things. I have nothing to say yet about it because we are tendering some contracts, but I will definitely announce that in due course, that some major progress is being made there. We're working real hard on the Voltaire side as well. We were planning on having ballots around the 7th, but that was always kind of a floating tentative date. But it's sometime this month. And I'm going to talk to Dor tomorrow and throughout the week, and we'll get you an exact date for that soon. But things are definitely moving in the right direction there. And very soon, the DC fund is going to wake up. I believe we're still on target for an October voting season for the first wave of the DC fund. And we are collecting lots of great feedback from Fund 1. And there's already a ton of interesting ideas. IdeaScale has been a phenomenal partner to work with, and they provided a huge amount of value to the process. And we're getting a lot of cool business requirements. And we're already broadening the scope of things that we look at. For example, I had my BI people give me a report on Gitcoin. Very keen to look into that model. So there's lots of things we're learning from external projects as much as we are our own community. Lately, we've actually seen an enormous effort launched by Rick McCracken and his friends, which is a foundation community roadmap, which clearly articulates what the community feels the foundation should be doing. We at IO Global always support the wisdom of the crowds when it's properly engaged, and we're real happy to see that occur. And what we're going to try to do is see if we can add some structure to that conversation so it doesn't just kind of go in 12 different directions and spin out of control, but rather it gets really focused and refined so they can get a clear set of asks. And what's nice is there's a kind of an analogous work stream with what's going on with Voltaire in the work with IdeaScale. It's just being done on a much larger level with what Rick has started. So I think somehow if we could find a way to get Dor and his team and IdeaScale involved with the roadmap process and put some project management tools on par with it, we'll get much higher quality conversation. And not only that, I think it'll converge to very specific asks that are addressable. As I mentioned before in my last video, when that roadmap is finalized, the community is very happy about it. We'll write an open letter to the Cardano Foundation requesting a line-by-line response. Basically, each item on that agenda of that roadmap, either an acknowledgement that they're going to do it and how they're going to do it, when it's going to get done, or an explanation of why they can't do that or why it's a counterproductive idea. There could be regulatory reasons why they couldn't pursue these things, or budgetary reasons, or priorities, or other things. But silence cannot be the answer. If the community is going to take the time, uncompensated, to build something, the foundation needs to address that directly. And we'll do everything we can from the IO Global side to kind of make sure that that gets done. But we're real happy to see what Rick has accomplished in such a quick period of time. It's always astounding. You know, we are one of the most decentralized and vocal communities in the cryptocurrency space, and they don't like lack of progress. And they remind us that on a daily basis. Marketing. Lisa is an interesting gal. She, our marketing director. Sorry, just getting a phone call here from City Longmont. Lisa is our marketing director, and she's just getting her feet wet. We've already had her in several meetings, and what we'll probably do is have her come on to the Cardano Effect in due course to basically give you guys an idea of what our marketing strategy is going to look like and how we're going to do product marketing and comparison marketing. That's the first priority that we've given her. And then we'll actually merge that over into campaign marketing for specific demographics and groups that we think are high value to have acquisition into the ecosystem. Also getting very heavily involved on the programming language side. And we're trying to tender out some parallelism with the roadmap of Goguen so that we can deliver even more to market faster. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all going to cost me probably a few $1 million to do this. If you look at all the things I'm accelerating with additional funding. But I'm a competitive guy, and we've all gone too far 5 years into this to lose. It's about time we win. So if it's a matter of spending a little bit more money to get us where we need to go so that we can be more solid entering into 2021, that's okay. I got that. We'll get that done. So things are looking nice. Anyway, we'll have a lot more to report later this month and at the end of the month and going into October about a lot of Goguen and DApp related items. So not much to say there. On the ETC side of things, we did our presentation for the checkpointing, and we talked to Sergio Lerner over at Rootstock for their firm to do a presentation on their solution. And we've been in contact with the Veriblock guys and others, and we've asked them to do presentations in similar format to what we did with the Crowdcast. And we probably will also do a presentation on hash algorithms and have Roman Olinikov, or one of our scientists, go ahead and do that. Because Roman has been studying proof of work algorithms for quite some time, and he's already done a lot of comparison work. And of course, we'll schedule a meeting to discuss the treasury system as well, and we'll keep beating that drum. The team is gradually getting Mantis where it needs to go, and we'll have an announcement probably middle to end of month about how that's coming along, and we'll start public meetings pretty soon, like we did before, where we have weekly status updates on Mantis with that development team. So a lot of interesting things there. We're in right now negotiations with runtime verification for the resurrection of Yella. So that's going to be an interesting thing as well. It's quite a big project. It's a 7-figure project. But I think they definitely can do a lot. And they've been working with a lot of great firms in the space. And it's really impressive to see how fast and far they've grown in the last 2 years as a firm, especially in our industry. So I'm really excited to see where that's going to go. But nothing to announce yet because it's a negotiation and big money. So everything has to get where it needs to go. We're going to donate $125,000 to the Haskell Foundation. It's a new group that's being formed to help get Haskell where it needs to go. We'll do a press release and all kinds of cool stuff about that. But it's exciting too because Haskell has always been a series of tribes that are super brilliant, and they're not quite as unified as other languages like JavaScript or Java. And that's a shame. It kind of holds back the ecosystem. So getting some unification and direction is going to be very advantageous for that ecosystem. So we've been regularly talking to Simon Peyton-Jones and others about how to do this. And I think we're starting to converge to a really good community-oriented idea. And they're putting together a beautiful roadmap. And so we wanted to be an early sponsor, and other companies are already in discussions about sponsoring that as well, some large, some small. And overall, I think that that's going to be a very successful endeavor, and it's going to ensure that Haskell remains competitive and actually surpasses other language ecosystems. And that's beneficial for Cardano because a lot of our stack is written in that language. The better it gets, the better Cardano gets. So we're real happy to be part of that. Okay, let's see here. Let's get to your questions. I love these types of questions. If ADA gets to $10 tomorrow, people will undelegate, sell their holdings. How does this impact the security of Cardano? Well, the people who bought the $10 ADA because they spent $10 on it will probably be very concerned about the stability and security and viability of the ecosystem, right? So they would make really informed decisions to delegate that to the necessary pools. The system gets more secure and people make more specific and rational decisions as the price goes up. So actually, price appreciation benefits all of us. It gets harder to attack the system. How will we celebrate 3 years of Cardano? Yeah, I'm kind of sad that I don't get to go anywhere. September is going to be the 3rd anniversary of Cardano. Last year, we went to Bulgaria and planted trees with Vassal, and the first year we went to Japan. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to go anywhere because of coronavirus, but it would be really cool to do some form of special virtual event that's community oriented for the 3rd anniversary where we all get to share it together. So I'll talk to my people and see if we can set up some sort of special thing to do on that day. But unfortunately, we just can't do that right now. Colorado Calling is saying Cat 1 outside, be safe. Yeah, it's cold. Give us a rant on holacracy. That's Tam Hassan's pet project, holacracy, holacratic systems. I saw a video by Philippe where he asked questions about it seems that IOG is the only powerful driver of Cardano. No, Emurgo has a major role in place, and the CF does have a major role in place as well. It's just that it's different boats for different strokes. First off, let's be clear here. A lot of people say marketing, 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 marketing. You have to separate marketing within genuine belief that they want adoption of the product and real use and utility of the product, and from Tron style marketing, let's make the price go up. We saw that with Tron. The price doubled, and now it's going back down. It lost almost all of that value it gained. We're not here to make speculators rich. We're not here to go ahead and build up something for some random group of people who are with us for 2 weeks. I mean, look at Stellar when they burnt all that Stellar. The speculators took all the profits and Stellar collapsed, and they destroyed their entire runway as an ecosystem just for a short-term market event. It makes absolutely no sense to me in any capacity to market if that's the end goal. So you have to market when the system is ready to receive new people. So we need stake pools. We need smart contracts. We need the ability to capture and hook people and have them do productive things. And look, we're almost at the dawn of Goguen. We're almost at the dawn of Voltaire. And now we have stake pools. So now is the time when you actually turn up the marketing juice. And that's why we hired Lisa. And there's a concerted effort to really push this forward. Because when we're saying, hey, look at Cardano, we're not saying buy ADA. We're saying use ADA to do X, Y, and Z. We're saying use this ecosystem to solve a problem. And you can participate in many different dimensions inside that system. It means the people that come stay. And they're not here to make 5%, 10%, 20%, liquidate, and then go to the next ecosystem. They're here to do something, and they're going to be with us forever. So everybody has a role in that. On our side, at the global side, our primary responsibility is making sure we have good documentation and good product marketing. So when we talk around things like Ouroboros, Plutus, extended UTXO, the network model, the particular ledger rules that we have, et cetera, these items that are unique to Cardano, people must understand why are they special, what do they do, and how do they compare with market standards. We have a deficit there. So we've hired specifically to resolve that deficit. And this is an aggressive campaign that I'm going to personally be pushing with Lisa to get that done and get that satisfied so that we have good comparison and product marketing done. Now, that's not campaign marketing. Campaign marketing is a very different animal altogether. What that is saying, okay, which one of these features would be most interesting to this demographic? And you pick a demographic, developers, but then you say, even amongst them, there's infrastructure developers, open source developers. There are 25-year-old fresh out of computer science school kids, and there's the 45-year-old CTO or senior engineer at a firm, a Fortune 500 company. You speak different tongues, different languages to these demographics. So even amongst developers, how do you get acquisition of developers? Be very specific. And campaigns are sculpted around specific demographics. Campaign marketing is the provenance of the Cardano Foundation. Their job is to represent that product amongst high-value constituencies, stake pool operators, exchanges, certain types of developers, regulators, these types of people. And there's different things to say for different constituencies. But we will also do campaign marketing, especially with developer acquisition, and we'll focus where we think we can add the most value. Emurgo certainly is already doing that, especially in the Asian circles, and they're adding a cross-cultural component to it. So, even amongst marketing, when people say more marketing, you have to be very specific. And then you have to ask, what are you trying to accomplish with the marketing? My goal is to have funnels to bring people in and keep them and have them use the platform to do stuff. And on our side, we're going to make sure we get the product and comparison marketing done. We'll be very aggressive. And on the foundation side, it's prudent for them to work heavily on campaign marketing. And then we'll meet in the middle when there's overlapping campaigns that we need to run. And it's the same for Emurgo in that respect. But we will get that done. We're the most visible because I'm a visible guy. I'm very transparent, open, and I do lots of videos. But by no means does that mean that nothing is happening elsewhere. In fact, there's tons and tons and tons of progress, not just with the core entities, but with the community as a whole. And we see this from time to time. But it's no more visible than what's going on right now with the community-oriented roadmap. That's completely bottom-up, groundswell up. And if they can do this on a drop of a dime to build something, imagine what else they can do when the community harnesses together on challenge problems. And right after they build the roadmap, everybody's going to say, wait a minute, we've just discovered a superpower. Let's reuse this superpower and gradually work our way through a backlog of things that we as an ecosystem need to resolve. Other communities don't do that. They just wait to get rich. We don't. We actually do real things and build real things. Yeah, by the way, apparently there's an Italian channel that just got taken over, and this is what always happens. Some channel by some idiot who doesn't know what the hell they're doing gets taken over, and then the hacker puts an impersonation video of me and tries to do a giveaway scam, and then his audience comes and blames me for hacking the channel. not realizing that they're blaming the victim. People are using my brand name, face, and reputation to scam and defraud other people, and are overlaying that with a channel that's stolen. The people whose channel has been stolen, please tell your audience we are not responsible. And if you can't understand that, then you should probably not have an audience. It's obvious. I don't need to go hack other people's channels. And I don't appreciate your audience going to my channel and saturating all of my comments with extremely abusive and offensive language, probably directed by you, the content provider. It's wrong. Stop it. And understand that we're victimized too by these things. And I've seen now 3 videos that are saturated with these comments, most recently because apparently an Italian channel got hacked. Prior to that, it was a Serbian channel. I even received death threats from the audience. It's an extraordinary thing to me, an extraordinary thing, because it's just like use common sense. Spend 5 minutes researching and understanding. But people just can't do that anymore. Everybody's so shallow in their ability to think and understand. Question, how do you avoid illegal content, for example, child pornography being uploaded to the Cardano blockchain? You don't. What you do is you create pruning mechanisms where people don't have to download the full state of the system, but rather authentication points for that. This is actually a question that came up Bitcoin years and years ago, over 10 years ago. It was one of the very first questions tendered on Bitcoin Talk to Satoshi Nakamoto himself. My belief in the solution for this type of content is to say, okay, you can't get rid of history. Things happened, but you don't have to be complicit in the propagation of history. So what you do is you take the offending items and you replace those offending items with a hash. So people know that's there, but a hash isn't the content. It's just keeping the integrity of the system. And you allow people to self-censor in that respect. Everybody has different values. They have different laws. They have different religions they come from or lack thereof. And because of those different viewpoints, things that are offensive to one group of people may not necessarily be offensive to another group of people. Although I would argue in the case of child porn, that's ubiquitously offensive to all of society. It should, of course, be banned as other things like probably necrophilia and so forth. But it should not be forced upon you to propagate and relay these things. So we're not in a position where that's common to happen in our system, but somewhere in the long arc of the system, it will happen. And what we're probably going to do is design a protocol specifically for pruning, and that will be one of the use cases of it. So there's offensive pruning, and then there's also optimization and economic pruning. And so these are kind of your 3 categories. You want to censor something or remove something because it's problematic to a group or to all of society. You want to prune something because the cost of carrying that thing is too great, or you want to prune something because it's no longer in use in the system. It's like a dead coin or something like that. So it would be problematic to just implement a haphazard way of doing this. As a young system, you don't have this problem. As a system like Ethereum or Bitcoin, they do. And you need to have some scheme for it. So I will talk to Aggelos to make a research priority in 2021, and we will develop something, and then it can basically be built into the client. And so you can, in your copy of Daedalus or as a stake pool operator, identify things that you don't feel comfortable with, and then replace those things with some sort of representation of them, but not actually be involved in the propagation and relay. And because it's a decentralized distributed choice, people basically get to do that. Charles didn't lay anyone off. I did not lay anybody off. Didn't fire Ben or Casey. In fact, I've offered Ben a job. I was surprised as anybody else, and I was consulted in that decision. This is another example of decentralized systems. It's really difficult for people to get the right facts. We are not the Cardano Foundation. I have no control or influence over them. I'm on the outside, just like you guys are, and I'm not informed or party to these types of decisions that they make. Who is Lisa and what has she done before? This is why I think it would be great to bring her on the Cardano Effect, because not only can she talk about what she's going to do with us, but then she can also talk about her background and where she came from. Hey, Charles, do you know when you'll post an updated security video? I'm still waiting on some feedback. Some people have been very generous in giving their time and feedback to me, and I just have not had the time to actually go through everything quite yet. But I will do something. Charles, can you tell us what type of headphones you use? Different boats for different strokes, but I just got the Sony 1000 XM4s. I was a big fan of the XM3 series. I used it extensively in air travel, and I got them for next year when I start traveling again. They're great at earphones. The Sennheiser earbuds, the Momentum True Wireless 2s are the absolute best I've ever used. But I don't use them for teleconferencing. I use the Apple AirPod Pros for that because they have the best microphone. What's Cardano's relationship with Kadena? How are you working together? We are not working together. Kadena is an independent project, although they are joining, or at least some of their members are participating in the Haskell Foundation. So maybe through that body, we can find some common ground and collaboration because they write Haskell code. I know of Stuart Popejoy and his co-founder, and I've been following them since they were part of JP Morgan on the Juno project. And I have no problem with Kadena. I think they're perfectly reasonable people. Hey, Charles, do you really think that we'll be bigger than Ethereum and Polkadot? Yeah, because they've chosen to be big fishes in small tanks, and I want to go swim in the ocean. That's why we go and acquire countries. Like we're starting to build a whole bunch of infrastructure in the country of Georgia. That's millions of people. It's the same for Ethiopia and these other things. It takes a little bit more time, but once those deals come through, we'll have 100 times more users. There's this flavor of the week that these projects tend to have. Tell me, how many applications are people right now writing with Ruby on Rails? And how popular was Ruby on Rails back in the day? Things change. And so don't ever believe that just because you're a first mover and you kind of have a little bit that somehow you are the entry point. There's more people trying to get off of Ethereum than people trying to get into Ethereum. So I don't worry at all about it. Hey, Charles, what do you do about SHA-3 proof of work for ETC? I'm personally agnostic about the proof of work algorithm that they use. Proof of work is boring to me. There's a lot of things you can do to accelerate it, make it interesting, but there's no appetite in the ETC community for that deep level of innovation on the proof of work side. There will be if they go to a treasury system and there's independent teams, because we can finally have a real conversation about a real roadmap. But right now, if we're arguing over RandomX over SHA-3, that's like arguing Feathercoin or Litecoin. It's like, seriously, is this what we're doing here? It's a waste of time, and it doesn't solve any problem, in my view. The only way you can solve 51% attacks is by getting to a point where you're too expensive to attack. The only way you become too expensive to attack is providing real use and value and utility to your ecosystem. I'm sorry, you don't go and write a Medium post about how you're working with regulators and law enforcement to prevent 51% attacks. If that's where you're going, you don't really get what this is all about. You don't fix cryptocurrencies by talking to the government. They're kind of an alternative to that whole governance structure. You might as well just centralize on Amazon if this is your approach. You can guarantee security then. Hey, Charles, why a Litecoin improvement proposal? Why not a Bitcoin improvement proposal? Well, first, a BIP has no way in hell of ever passing. I mean, we could write them till the cows come home. Even if we tried to lobby for that, it'd be 5 years before anything is adopted. The core developers of Bitcoin have difficulty getting BIPs adopted. It's so slow. so slow. They have 5 really awesome ideas that if they implemented today would make Bitcoin super competitive. And they all agree these are awesome ideas. And even still, it's going to take 2 or 3 years for those super competitive, awesome ideas to work their way into Bitcoin. So it's not really a good use of my time, to be honest with you, to spend too much time in the governance side of Bitcoin. But I do think we can have significantly faster and more interesting pushing in the Litecoin community, in the Bitcoin Cash community, in the Dash community, and other cryptocurrencies where we can offer clear and present value to the ecosystem. So a LIP and a BCIP make a lot of sense, and they probably are realistic in a 3 to 6, perhaps 12-month time horizon for that ecosystem to adopt. And then once you get enough of these smaller cap coins, then it's easier then to approach Bitcoin, because you say, okay, well, 12 other guys have done this and it hasn't blown up in their face, and you can see the clear value in the lack of security issues that these things have, like NEPA pals, for example. Why the hell aren't you doing it? And then you just wait 2 years and you get it done. But that's the frustration with Bitcoin. I wish it was different. Actually, I'd still be in the Bitcoin space because I started with Bitcoin if it was moving quickly. And I just built layer 2 solutions on top of Bitcoin. The whole reason I helped build Ethereum and later Cardano was because we were shut out from meaningful and realistic participation. The other thing is Bitcoin is a cult. It's a cult around proof of work, and it's a cult around the design of Satoshi. And every decision you make in Bitcoin is, would Satoshi have agreed with this? Is this compatible with our vision of proof of work, or these things? And we say, guys, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to placate a doctrine, or are you trying to solve problems with principles? What are you trying to do? And it seems in that side of the tank, it's placate a doctrine, not solve real life problems. I'm an entrepreneur to go solve problems. My mission is to give or provide the foundations for economic identity for those who don't have it. Okay? It's not to go become a moon boy and get crazy rich off of Bitcoin's appreciation, or to somehow prove that the cult of Satoshi is right, or proof of work is the only truth. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I would much rather live in a world where we wake up every day and we say we're doing something together. And I don't really care if we have to change the protocols along the way, or we embrace one design of consensus over another, or one smart contract language over another. These are implementation details, and they should never get in the way of the mission and the fact that we're solving problems with principles. That's what we do here. Now, if you disagree with that, there's 3,000 cryptocurrencies to choose from. There's plenty of options to go to. But I'm sorry, I'm never going to bend in that respect. What do you think of proof space-time? Proof of space-time, that was Peter Gaggi's work. He works at IOHK alongside others, and it's an interesting idea. There's a lot of cool stuff there. We write a lot of papers. Charles, what are your ideas of using artificial intelligence to help the Cardano ecosystem? I talked to Ben Gortzel a lot about this, and our people certainly engaged with them. And I've been reading more and more AI books. In fact, I have a few right here if you guys are ever curious. So first off, if you actually want to understand how AI works under the hood, the Bible for AI is Peter Norvig's book and Stuart Russell's book, and that is Artificial Intelligence, A Modern Approach. It's now in its 4th edition, okay? But this is the Bible for AI. It covers everything. And after you read it, you can actually have a conversation with a computer scientist who's an AI expert. I bought this book. I actually read a prior edition years ago when I was a student. I bought this book because I'm going to use some of the ideas in it for my course I'm creating on computer science, which will come somewhere over the rainbow. And actually, there's a large amount of philosophy behind AI. So Human Compatible, which is Stuart Russell's other book, it's a more philosophical book about AI, along with Marvin Minsky's work and a few others, really discuss the implications of it. But really, you have to break it down into kind of 2 general buckets when you think about AI. One bucket is the superhuman capability in a scope, and the other bucket is general intelligence. These are very different things. It's not hard to make a computer system see better than a human, or hear better than a human, or play chess better than a human, or go better than a human. This was the big challenge of the 1980s and 90s and 2000s and so forth. And all of the innovations in AI on the industrial side and on the academic side have provided a enormous amount of leaps, innovative leaps in that respect, to a point where in each of these categories, there's probably a superhuman capability that is open source and accessible. This is why people are now doing deepfakes for fun on the internet. This was perhaps one of the hardest things you could try to do if you were a graduate student in computer science in 1990 and somebody gave you this challenge. It would be like your dissertation and it would be shitty. Today, it's like a fun Facebook thing that people do deepfakes of Elon Musk on the troll guy, you know, la, 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 la. It's like they can do that stuff very easy, okay? That's not general intelligence. And that's a very different problem. That's where Ben lives and these other guys live. And there's far, far, far fewer AI experts who work in general artificial intelligence. Now, I'm not a computer scientist. I studied mathematics. And in mathematics, there's an analogy. All the time mathematics, there are very particular domain math problems that mathematicians will solve. And they're low-hanging fruit. And they're interesting. And you can write papers and get published about that. Then we have the big problems of mathematics. Things like the Riemann hypothesis, the Goldbach conjecture, the Waring hypothesis. It's just dozens and dozens of these, and Navier-Stokes stuff and so forth. And those problems are fun, and every undergraduate and graduate student studies them and thinks about them and dreams of solving them because they're huge. And if you try to pursue that, you probably will burn out your academic career because you'll have no publications, you'll have no progress because those are unassailable problems in that respect. Unfortunately, that analogy holds in the AI space. If you go and try to get a PhD in artificial intelligence, there are very few people who work on AGI, artificial general intelligence, because it's too hard of a problem. You're not likely to get good publications. You're not likely to make a lot of progress, which translates to no dissertation, no postdoc, no tenure, okay? So we actually see more interest in the AGI side of artificial intelligence in industry, like the Elon Musks of the world who are independently wealthy and can just open their wallet and say, $3 billion, yay. Or the Larry Pages or other people who have so much money, they can just make this a priority. And we see progress there, like the GPT and these types of things. Now, there's this question of values and wisdom that lurks over all of this. Now, in the first bucket, the superhuman capabilities of AI in a specific area, there is no value or wisdom or philosophy or ethics that natively live there. If I write drone software that's really good at target painting people in the dark, the system will not care that I use that capability to drop a bomb on them. It makes no value judgment there. And that's pretty terrifying if you think about it, because basically the superhuman capabilities allow you to be superhuman at doing good, but they also allow you to be superhuman at doing wrong. That's a big problem. And there's a lot of ethicists who live in that space, and they talk about that, and they say, if we keep seeing doubling in capabilities, if we lack the wisdom to use these systems, we're going to run into some serious social problems here, extinction level events, because these things can cascade. And there's all kinds of things to read about, like the gray goo problem, for example, that live in that side. Max Tegmark is a great author in this respect. He writes Life 3.0, and he talks about the wisdom gap with technology. Succinctly, you tend to invent the safety belt after inventing the car, not at the same time. So similarly, when you invent nuclear weapons, you tend to get to non-proliferation treaties and agreements and the idea that maybe we should get rid of them long after you invent the nuclear weapon, which means there's a gap where you can use these technologies to do profound human harm. And the problem is each technological epoch results in an exacerbation of the level of harm that you can provide on society. What does that translate to? It means that AI is an extinction level technology. The first one we encountered was nuclear weapons. That was the first extinction level technology. There was nothing before that that unilaterally could end the entire human race, but nuclear weapons could. AI can, and it can at a much greater efficiency than nuclear weapons could, because it removes human judgment from extinction events. The CRISPR is another technology that can do that. There's actually several that we can invent that we're going to that are of that level of seriousness. Now, values, wisdom, and judgment do live in the AGI side, because these things are not just mimicking capabilities, they're independently intelligent. They have the ability to influence their environment around them. And they have the ability to make value assessments of whether they should influence their environment around them. Francois Chalet is a great AI researcher as well. And there's a good interview that he did with Lex Friedman, where he actually talks about a paper where he talks around artificial and general intelligence and definitions of intelligence in general. And I really admire and respect those definitions. I think they're quite viable. But the problem is that when you talk about evolving an organism, an artificial organism that is cognate, it can actually influence its environment and make independent decisions to do so. There's a question of, will the values of that thing be compatible with human values? And the answer is no. More often than not, likely not, because our values are a direct derivation of evolution and social constructs that were there to regulate things we happen to need to survive. Societies are constructs of our desire to reduce war, famine, and disease. So we created all these things. Ethical systems, religious systems, languages, all of these things, and our cognition is heavily invested in that. What makes an AI survive and the evolutionary pressures behind an AI are totally different than our system. So it's as meaningful as saying, how does our eyesight and perception of reality compare to the eyesight and perception of reality of a fly or some radically different organism? The problem is that the time scale of evolution for us is fundamentally different from the time scale of evolution of an artificial organism. What takes us hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years of selective pressures and social constructs and mimology can be done in seconds on an AI side. So it can catch up and surpass so quickly that that organism will reach a state far beyond us in short order once we turn it on. So it's discovered, it becomes sentient, and within a few hours, anything human race has done, it's surpassed. Now, the question is, can we make it compatible with our values and wisdoms? And this is what projects like OpenAI and others are thinking about, and they're trying to figure out, how do we regulate this technology? If there was ever a case for global regulation, extinction level technology or existential threats to the human race are examples of that. Nuclear weapons are the first case study in this, and AI is another. Unfortunately, our policymakers are all in their 70s and 80s, and they don't know their heads from their asses, so they have no clue that these are the types of conversations they really need to be having with each other, not conversations about trade or social justice or whatever. That doesn't make any sense at all. It's like saying, before you even worry about minor details, let's worry about the things that, if we don't regulate or control carefully, can have existential problems for the human race. And this is certainly one area where I am completely convinced in the next 25 to 50 years, we will achieve an AGI. In the next 25 to 50 years, that AGI's character will be completely determined upon the context it was created within and the society it reaches ascension within. If that AGI reaches ascension and a society with good values and wisdom and a respect for human life and respect for each other and good discourse, it will become a mentor and offer great wisdom at a scale we could never imagine and help us get to the next level of human evolution. If this thing wakes up in a world of chaos, it will compute that the most likely outcome is the human race will destroy itself and pose an existential threat to itself, because it will make this world uninhabitable. And so the most logical outcome is remove the human race, because it's going to do that itself. And if the AI handles it, it'll be able to do so in a way that presents self-preservation. And it'll be far, 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 far more capable in a hyper-connected world of doing that than we can for ourselves. So the burden's on our shoulders to recognize it's inevitable, and we as a species have to do something about it. I don't have answers. I just know the problem space, and it's a fascinating topic, and it's one that we're a bit myopic on because the incentives are wrong in the academic world, and there's too many people on that side and not enough people in the AGI side, and there's no incentive for governments to worry about existential problems because they kill you after the fact. You don't get any brownie points for preventing them. This coronavirus pandemic is a great example of that. Every single year, the Department of Homeland Security in the United States had a working group that would talk about influenza pandemics. And they would write a huge laundry list of recommendations of what the US government should do. And all of those recommendations were either not followed or underfunded. Why? Because if you spend billions of dollars preventing something, it doesn't happen. And because it didn't happen, no one values it. And after it happens, everybody values prevention, but it's too late. It's that simple. It's why we have these problems with environmental policy. It's why we have these problems with pandemic policy. And only now do we wake up and say, maybe we should have been a little bit better on all these things. So artificial intelligence is no different in that respect. Now, your specific question is, what can AI do for blockchain? Blockchain is the Constitution. You need interpreters of the Constitution. You need a Supreme Court for your Constitution. And right now, that's human beings. They can either be activists or they can be contextualists, constructivists, originalists, and say we'll follow code as law, or the intent was this, and we will modify the system to meet that intent. Okay? Paper law, mass digital law. AGI, or something like it, a simulacrum of AGI, can allow you to substitute human judgment for the Supreme Court with artificial judgment for the Supreme Court, and further automate more and more things like dispute resolution or whether a hard fork should happen or not. But that presupposes that evolves to a point where it's capable of doing that. I'd say within 5 to 10 years, AI will evolve to be a substantial assistant in that respect. That's your long answer to your question. I hope that was helpful. What do you think of the Autoculus proof of work? I just got an email from Alex about that, actually. He's not super happy, but he is happy. It's an interesting conversation. We'll see if he can write a blog post about it. Charles, are you content with your depiction in The Infinite Machine? It's a work of fiction in that respect. I lived it and I have a perspective, and other people lived it and they have a perspective. And what she did is she just put together a synthesis of these different perspectives and said, this is history. Many books will be written about me and the things that I do. And that's just one data point. Some is right, some's not right. But to be honest, I just don't care. Because Ethereum at the end of the day was not my project. It was Ethereum's, is Vitalik's story and his project. And it's a book about him and the people that he interacted with and the perspectives he had to contend with and the challenges he had to do. We'll have our time. If we work out and everything goes the way I think it's going to go, many books will be written about Cardano, and that'll be a book about us. And I'll have a different depiction in that respect. And you know what? Everybody's a critic. Everybody could have done things differently. Everybody understands things at such a high level. A lot of the things I predicted that were going to happen happened. And a lot of things that are ascribed to skill and merit and belief are actually luck, blind luck. Had Ethereum not gone to the moon, do you honestly believe the foundation would have had the resources it needed to continue being a custodian of the project and pursuing ETH2? Had NXT not had significant missteps and they got smart contracts faster, do you think that they would have been the ICO platform and had all the ERC20 tokens on them? Had Dan Larimer stuck with BitShares and pushed EOS there instead of going to Steem? These are all counterfactuals. And had they happened, would we care about Ethereum? Would there even be an Infinite Machine book? And what would the narrative be there? The people who were the harshest critics of me in that book, look to what they've done since Ethereum as a project. Look what I've done. After 6 months in one project, I got back up, dusted myself off, started a company, built a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem, wrote 75 papers, million lines of code, Have a community, enough that 1,000 people are watching me live right now. It's easy to be a critic. It's easy to be cynical. It's hard to wake up and fight every day and get things done and follow your vision and your mission. And at the end of the day, my definition of success is not overcoming these people. My definition of success is what we have said all the way since my TED Talk over 7 years ago, which is economic identity to those who don't have it, with power to the edges, identity with principles. That's the only judge I care about. If I accomplish that, great. If I don't accomplish that, I failed. I does not care what people write about it at the end of the day. My vindication is that billions of people will have a better life. How many of you know who Norman Borlaug is or what he did? Some. But Kim Kardashian is a household name. He's not. Did you know he saved 1 billion people's lives? It's not about the fame. Charles, Russia was forbidden from staking and trading crypto. How will we deal with this in the future? Russians will create companies outside of Russia under non-Russian law, and those companies will do things on their behalf. Just that simple. Russians know how to figure that out, as do Americans. Law always goes to the weakest link. If you can't do it at home, you'll find another place to do it, but it will get done. Why are stake pools that have produced over 300 blocks and it seems that zero or none for others? Yeah, that's a Pareto principle answer. 20% do 80% of the work. Every system has Pareto principle in the beginning, and it'll gradually deviate over time, but it takes some issue. Hey, Charles, thoughts on the Ryzen issue? Can it be prevented in the future? Here's my thing. I cannot do everything. I have to assume that the computer you're running the code on operates in a certain way. If AMD or Intel tells me they have specialized hardware to do something, I'm going to trust that AMD and Intel have used that specialized hardware correctly unless someone else has told me. And more often than not, someone else is a DEF CON or a major cryptographic issue or whatever. And every now and then, something slips through the cracks. In this particular issue, older Ryzen processors had a firmware problem, a design flaw, where random numbers coming out of them were junk. I have no idea how that slipped through, and someone noticed it, and responsible disclosure occurred, and we basically added an extra layer of protection for those particular unpatched Ryzen processors, which is a small minority of all processors in circulation. These are exceedingly rare bugs, and when they come up, you resolve them as best you can. Sometimes you can fix them. Sometimes only the hardware manufacturer can fix them. But I have to assume that the platform we build on is correct. I can't go and fix Intel's problems or AMD's problems. All I can do is, when they come up, compensate for them, which is the issue with the Ryzen random number generation concern. It was so, as they say, how do they abuse the random number bug to get pledged data? If you don't actually have random generation of wallet, the chance of a collision of two wallets is extremely high. So if two people on the same platform created their wallet with basically the same seeds, you'd actually restore the other person's wallet. It's a disaster scenario. So I used to use an analogy of, what's your chance of a collision? I say it's like finding a grain of sand on all the beaches in the entire world and imagine there's 100 Earths. That's your probability. But if you have a random number error, I'm saying you only get to look on one particular beach next to one particular towel. Your chance of a collision is much, much, much higher then, right? Because your search space is extremely small. So that's how that happens. It's not a security issue. It's an assumption that you have a true random number generator when you create a wallet. If that's not the case, then the wallet's not secure. That's not our fault. That's the fault of the underlying hardware. And I'm really annoyed by that too, because AMD should know better. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. I'm just some guy in Colorado. Come on. I got to Circus Soleil mask back there. Come on now. Lisa, you're letting me down. Yeah, that's the question I didn't want you to ask, you son of a bitch. Hi, Charles. You're going to upgrade your RTX 2080 Ti given the released NVIDIA GPU. I spent like $1,000 on that card, and then the 3080 comes out. It's twice as fast, and it just came out. God, that's so terrible. No, I'm not going to upgrade. I'm just going to grudgingly have my 2080 Ti because I don't game anymore, so I don't have time for that. So I have real no use for that kind of power, but I will be angry the entire time that I no longer have the most elite computer. Thanks for noticing that, you community person, you. Yeah, it feels so bad. It's like buying an iPhone the day before they announced the new iPhone. You're like, damn it, I should have waited. Why do you need ETC? How can this coin be profitable for Cardano? Well, it's in Cardano's best interest to be interoperable with as many systems as possible so that transaction volume can flow from one system to another system. Within a philosophy, systems can only do certain things. Cardano as a system can be a service provider not just to users and dApp developers, but to other cryptocurrencies. We tend not to actually think about that, but ask yourself this: is Litecoin going to wake up tomorrow and say, we're going to go do smart contracts and we're going to go do on-chain governance and all this stuff? No, it's not going to happen. They've been around for a long time, okay, like 9 years. And have they changed anything of substance in that respect? No. So what if we could say you can take your Litecoin and move it to Cardano and do some stuff on Cardano with it that you can't do on Litecoin? And okay, means every holder of ADA is party to those transactions and that economic activity. So the service providers, the delegators and stake pool operators, the holders of ADA profit somewhat from the fact that Litecoin is in the system doing stuff. It has to pay either in Litecoin or ADA to do that. And every holder of ADA will get what it's paid because they're service providers to that. Is ETC going to do everything? No, they're definitely not going to do on-chain governance. That's a no-go. Even if we had a treasury system, they're more likely than not going to outsource those capabilities to another system, let's say Volterra, which means ETC will enter our system and consume resources and pay for that consumption, which then benefits ADA holders. So we think about partnerships in terms of how do we get ERC20 tokens on our system? Ask yourself, why is an ERC20 token any different than ETC in that respect? The token has entered Ethereum, it's consuming Ethereum resources, and it's paying for that privilege. So if ETC, through a wrapped ETC transaction, comes into Cardano and consumes Cardano resources, doesn't that actually benefit the host network? That's the point of interoperability. That's what we're doing, is that we're building bridges with all these different systems, and they can come and consume the things in our system that are unique. And the more we offer, the more will come. The more demand, the more transactions, the more active the system, the more useful ADA happens to be. And if ADA is useful and has utility and is used, ADA is valuable. That's simple. The best things in life are simple and easy to understand. You always get screwed or scammed when things are hard to understand and complex, because in the complexity lies the deception. Simple and clean, easy peasy. Charles, love ADA, but what about Spark Token from Flare? Never heard of it. Probably is the cat's meow, but don't know anything about it. Greetings from the Czech Republic. I was in Prague last year. I love Prague. It's a beautiful place. Absolutely beautiful country, too. They have these strange oscillaries. You go to structures made out of bones. Good restaurants there, too. Always judge a company by its food. Let's see here. What I could do a lot of IOHK stake pools. Wouldn't it be better stake in small community pools? Yeah, to answer your question, delegation portfolios, I think, are going to address a lot of those concerns, and we'll get that done. It's part of the area that I'm accelerating personally because I want it. Charles, will you be attending the Wyoming Hackathon this year? Yes, I will. I will be there in person, drive on up, shake a lot of hands, kiss a lot of babies, do the Charles Hoskinson thing. Got my boots on. Can you help me understand any difference between the C fund and the DC fund? C fund is Charles Hoskinson's money that I put on the table as a traditional venture capital. And what it's going to do is go and invest in equity for ventures that we think are promising. The DC fund is treasury funds that are created from the Cardano blockchain itself. And what it does is it gives grants to projects that will improve the use, utility, and overall value of Cardano as an ecosystem. That can be donating to a charity, that can be building a certain piece of infrastructure, that can be marketing activity, that can be giving all the diaspora that have fled Sudan into Ethiopia identity. It's up to the community to decide. I decide for C fund where to put the money because it's my money. The DC fund, you decide as an ADA holder. Those are the differences. Greetings from South Africa. Well, greetings to you. Whereabouts? DC equals decentralized Cardano fund. C fund equals Cardano fund. Pretty simple. DC is separate from Emergo? Yes. Emergo has their own fund. So I have the C fund. They have their Emergo stuff. The DC fund is a community effort. And you decide. When do we get the IOG website? Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. And not this year. Next year. It's going to be beautiful. Charles, do you read Carl Sagan or Jacques Fresco because you seem to share their vision of a utopian world, which I believe is not utopian but achievable? It's utopian only if you don't believe it can happen. If you believe it can happen, it's hard but achievable. I've read their work. Can you explain why the CF can't behave the same as IOHK or Emergo when it comes to controversial topics? Well, first off, it's an ownership and command and control issue. So at the end of the day, I own and control IOG. And if something happens, I'm the guy wearing the orange jumpsuit for IOG. Okay, so it's a personal risk. And I have to wake up every day and say, what do I want to do? What do I not want to do? What do I want to say? What do I not want to say? And I live with the consequences of that. And some of them are unforeseen. For example, if I ever ran for political office, every single one of these AMAs will be scoured by Oppo researchers, and they will take things I've said in or out of context and use it against me. So if I ever had a political career, I'm doing damage to that political career by sharing my opinions in their raw, non-politicized, unstructured form. That's a personal choice I'm making. I'll just deal with it. I think it's better to be open, transparent, and lead, even if there are personal consequences, organizational consequences, or it opens you up to criticism and attacks. Because the alternative is to not lead, be opaque, and closed. And while you may insulate yourself from personal risk, you will never change the world or accomplish anything. Different boats for different strokes. Foundation's a different beast. It has different demands. It has a different governing structure, different incentive model. If Cardano's successful, it's certainly going to be a big deal for me. If Cardano's successful, it's a big deal for the foundation, but not necessarily the fiduciaries of that organization. So if your incentives are different, you should expect different behavior. Okay? That's not an excuse for inaction, but it's a human reality. And whenever you start demanding that things be different from human reality, that's where you get into trouble. Never bet on altruism, never bet on volunteerism, never bet on great people just showing up and acting against their best interests to make things happen. Occasionally it does happen, but it's never sustainable, ever. So if you want to affect change, the rule always has to be you need to have the right incentives for change. This is why right now we see on Twitter the left and the media attacking Trump for his anti-military comments, saying that the military-industrial complex in the United States likes starting wars because they're profitable. This is a statement that Noam Chomsky, hero to the left, often utters, but now because the other side says it, it's revealing an inconvenient truth that the media is corporate and they're owned. The incentives are all screwed up. So it's convenient for them to be anti-war and be the opposition party. But the minute that they actually have to go online and actually perhaps could have some influence over policy and change it, oh, no, they can't get involved in that because their incentives are aligned to the companies that own and control them. And they certainly profit from war, not the lack thereof. You see, so if you want to know how the world works, start with incentives first. And ask who's getting rich, who's getting poor, who's getting power, who's losing power. And then suddenly everything makes a lot more sense. Why people support something or don't support something, why people are advocating one thing or the other. And when you find that people are advocating against their own incentives, like the rich advocating, for example, for higher tax rates, you should be instantly skeptical because they're advocating for something that's going to hurt them. And yes, people can be altruistic, but more often than not, they're not, especially the collective. For example, Bill Gates gives away lots and lots of money every year, but seems to make lots and lots of money. And perhaps not everything that they do in Africa is completely a charity. There is probably profit points to be made and good investments to be made as a consequence to the humanitarian arm of his organization. You just can't take such a legendary titan of business and say that suddenly all those skills and capabilities are just going to turn off and everything's about giving away and never making. Okay? Incentives always exist. And even when we're not aware of them, subconsciously they exist. And our biases, who we do business with, who we associate with, what we donate to, all of these things. It's always our perception of what we feel as a person. So that's the key. And so why do they behave differently? Because the incentives are different for me and for them. And so obviously they're different. If you want to change things, change the incentives, and then they'll behave the way you want. Any Bittrex news today? I'll have some news tomorrow. We actually just committed the patch that we did. That is a massive speed up. It may actually resolve their problem. If it does, their wallet will go online this week. If it does not, I will make a statement on Wednesday and every 2 days thereafter, including the weekend, about where we're at, what's going on. I hope it solves everything, though, and I'm very optimistic about it. But you know what? Our best people are on it, and it will get done one way or another. Hey, Charles, is there any plan to do auto delegation staking for those who don't want to research a good pool? Yeah, I think the best way of handling auto delegation is through delegation portfolios. So it's not a good idea to just say, just go pick a pool, because then you're picking specific winners and losers. Rather, what you can do is you can go to a center and you have the center reflecting preferences, like mission-oriented portfolio, or this is all female operators, or this is all developers, or these are all just small pools or something. The underlying composition of that can change by the curators, but it's still, because you trust the curator of that list will reflect your preferences. So you just click and say delegate to that. And then under the hood, things will be changing all the time, but your ADA will adjust accordingly automatically. You don't have to think about it. Then organizations like SPOCRA or others can publish lists and say, this is our view of who should be delegated to. And then if you agree with that, you can just click and delegate to it. And then everything is just simple and it handles that way. Make it super easy for institutional investors, value-based investors, ethics-constrained investors to do that. Why? Because let's say Dubai takes a large position in ADA. They have to be Sharia compliant. So they need a curated list that someone says is compliant with their values. That's simple. And they click it. They don't worry about it. It just does its thing. So delegation portfolios, I think, are the long-term solution there. Because at the end of the day, when you're delegating, you're getting into bed with somebody in a business agreement. You are saying, I have a resource and I'm going to lend that resource to you, and you're going to use it on my behalf to go try to have a chance to do something in the system. You want to get in bed with people you know and trust and follow your values. So this portfolio idea allows you to diversify, to mitigate risk, maximize around something, whether it's a mission or ROI, and get a better understanding of the people that you have a relationship with. Any plans to change the epoch length? We'd only do that if there's a theoretical reason for doing so, and we don't have one at the moment. But the community certainly can do that as a system-level parameter with Voltaire once it's fully released. You'll be in full control of this, and everybody will be ready to be in full control of this. There's already a lot of competency around parameters like K and D and A naught. People actually know what those mean and what they do. And so similarly, that competency will go for all parameters of the system, and people will be able to vote on it. Wasabi or soy? Wasabi. All right, let's get a good question here. Charles, will your computer science, is a PhD required to work for IOHK? No. In fact, the vast majority of our people do not have PhDs. I think 25 or so do. I don't have one. So you don't need a PhD to work for us. In fact, don't even need to graduate from high school to work for us if you don't want to. I care about merit and capabilities rather than credentials, because credentials don't matter to me anymore. I mean, it's a big world. Work 40 countries. The fuck does a PhD mean when it's issued by a weird university and weird country? Is that real? Is it not real? Do I have to go into literature and see, like the publication index of the supervising professor? Do we have to go and say, what conferences does this person go to? Oh, they're the top conferences in Russian speaking language. Like, what does that mean? Maybe it's very meaningful. Maybe it's not. It's like, no, I don't care. Everybody starts equal when they apply for us. Who are you? Your character, your culture you bring in, the skill sets you have. And we test everybody equally. And we've had plenty of people who have no credentials be phenomenal, and plenty of people with credentials have turned out to be duds. And so it is not required, nor is it for Elon Musk or frankly any other great entrepreneur, because they're here to solve problems, not placate egos. Credentials are a risk mitigation. That's what they're sold as. No one ever got fired from hiring the guy who's an MIT graduate. Because, I didn't know he was bad. He went to MIT. MIT is a great organization, right? Yeah, a lot of people got fired for taking that chance on that crazy dude that worked in a lab in West Virginia and, taught himself. But then again, that guy can be the world's next Tesla. So if you have the courage to take a risk and you have an environment that embraces failure, you find you have a much more diverse ecosystem. Organizations that are very credential focused tend to be low risk. That's why they accrue in government jobs, Fortune 500 companies, foundations, these types of things. Everybody's a credentialist. Charles, will your computer science lecture prepare its students for dApp development on the Cardano blockchain? You'll definitely learn enough from it to start approaching Plutus. I'm not going to teach Plutus, though, for the class. It's going to be a JavaScript-oriented class. However, I did just get Eric Elliott's book, Composing Software, which is a hybridization of functional programming and object-oriented programming. Eric Elliott is a brilliant guy. I really enjoy his work, and he's always writes interesting things. And this particular book is very unique because it's kind of the best of both worlds, the best of what object-oriented programming is about, which really does have a use and utility, and the best of functional programming in JavaScript. And it teaches you a lot of core concepts about it. Learn about functors and memoization and all these other things. So great. And I'm going to teach you guys all about that. When paper staking, when we have the QR code center in the new paper wallet, it'll be something you can do, and you can stake from a paper wallet. Hello from Abu Dhabi. Lovely place. What other country would you live in, Malta or Georgia? I'm an American. I'm always going to live in America. The thing about the United States that most people don't understand is we're like 14 countries in one. You want giant forests? We got giant forests. Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, the Endor moon. It was the forest moon of Endor. It was filmed in the Redwoods. Okay, so we have giant trees, we have oceans, we have tundra, we have huge mountains, we have everything. And we have different cultures as well. So within the U.S., you can find anywhere you want. And you can exist anywhere, any food, any language. We have it. I admire Switzerland greatly, and I admire Japan greatly. And if I had to be in exile, I'd probably be in exile in Switzerland and live a calm, peaceful life and start a watch company. If, I actually was forced to live somewhere else, I'd probably also consider several African countries. I really do admire, like Rwanda, for example, and it would be a fun place to live with a unique set of challenges. Hello from Iraq. Welcome, Amir. I already talked about GPT-3. I had a whole 30 minutes of AI. You missed all of it, son. Did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? No, he was killed by the deep state. Come on, that one's an obvious one. And Maxwell, she's not going to talk, and if she does start talking, she's going to kill herself too. There are certain people who are involved with a certain crowd who have an expectation to be silent because they know too much about the way the world really works. And if those people start singing, somebody's day job is to make sure they stop. Why do you think ex-US presidents have Secret Service protection? Think about it. Is it to protect them, or is it because they know too much? And it's the state reminding them that they're watched for the rest of their life. The president of the United States knows everything. They're given access to all the keys of the kingdom. They know where all the bodies are buried. They're in every one of those meetings, and they have a lot of power and influence. They leave office. They have no power anymore. Obama has no actual political power. Official political power, but he knows all those things, as does Bill Clinton and George Bush and so forth. And they have all these Secret Service agents around them to protect them. You think if they started telling us these secrets, they would survive? No. Ronald Reagan is a great example of that. After it became clear that he was losing his mind and he had Alzheimer's, what's the first thing that happened? He was quietly sequestered, never to be seen again after 1994. He knew too much. Can't talk because he's demented. He's no longer in a good state of mind. That's simple. Rogan after Gogan happening. Oh, of course it'll happen. I've been watching my Joe Rogan episodes, just, really training, getting ready, fired up, good to go. I guarantee you, Trump, after he leaves office, shortly after he leaves office, he's going to collapse of a heart attack or something. I would bet a lot of money on that. Absolutely bet a lot of money. Stroke or heart attack, and he's done as soon as he leaves office. LBJ was another example of that. Shortly after leaving office, LBJ started getting more vocal, started doing some interviews, started opening up the curtain and talking a little bit about what Washington was really like. Then he died of a heart attack. Just went away. Eisenhower had a lot of regrets, and shortly after leaving office, also died of a heart attack. Remember, he was the guy who did the MIC speech. No, Biden is a 25th Amendment play. 2 years in, he'll be removed or retire, say his dementia, and then Kamala Harris is president. You elect Biden, you elect Harris. It's that simple. 78-year-old guy with early stage dementia. He's sundowning. Come on. It's obvious. Have you ever considered starting a podcast? Isn't that what we're doing now? I guess I could do like Hour with Charles, bring on guests. We can have interviews. I got to learn. Could a Cardano stablecoin be collateralized with ADA and released upon lockup of ADA? Oh yeah, we're doing that. That's happening. I'm not going to say anything more about it, but we have a very good strategy and a very good plan, and it is absolutely essential for the future. And I think we are going to get that done. It's one of the highest priorities. Bruno is working on it. Do you believe social security numbers will ever be replaced with a blockchain project like Atala Prism? Yeah, it'll eventually happen in the next 25 to 50 years. Identity theft is so bad, society's so hyper-connected. We're going to come up with a different system for credential issuing, identification, and revocation and rotation, and also attestation. So that has to happen. Weinstein or Wolfram? I'm personal friends with Wolfram, and Weinstein's kind of a dick. So I'm going to go with Wolfram every day of the week. Um, Weinstein's a really smart guy. He just radiates this, I'm better than you because I have credentials and I'm brilliant and you don't even get to assess my ideas. Whereas Wolfram is a very contrarian guy. And, like, for example, his whole theory of everything, he's like, let's just all do it together. Computation, here's my approach, 600 pages, and anybody wants to help. Weinstein, does an interview. It's like, what about your theory of everything? And he says, oh, well, you can't even understand it. You're not qualified to understand it. It's in an interview. And I'm like, come on, dude. You at least gonna kind of explain it, give a summary of it. I don't respect that. I guess I'll never go on in his show now. and for justifiable reasons. Universities are right now where creativity goes to die. It is not a creative environment. It's an environment with rules and optimization, and you go there and you play by those rules with the hope that you can amass enough personal power and prestige to escape them. And if you're really good, you can in your 40s. If you're not so good, you can in your 60s. That's what universities do. That's where creativity goes to die. The most creative people live outside of the university system. And then if they get really powerful, then they go and build little enclaves where creativity is re-enabled, like the Santa Fe Institute or so forth. But it's by and large not a place where creative people stay. There's no reward for that. This is the other thing, like college admissions, blockchain system for college admissions. Did you guys know that anybody can go to Harvard? It's the biggest open secret Harvard. They have something called the Harvard Extension School. And every Harvard college student hates it because they feel it dilutes their brand and reputation. So you go to Harvard Extension. It's one of the 13 colleges of Harvard. You can just take open enrollment courses. And if you take enough of them and you do it well enough in enough of them, they'll let you actually go and sit for a degree. And you can get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. And there's plenty of people went to Harvard Extension, went off to Dartmouth and to MIT and other places and got prominent PhDs. And it's been around for 100 years. The biggest secret of these elite schools is they say they're resource constrained. They're not. If you really want to, you can have an open enrollment system and a meritocratic function with that. So let's say MIT did this. What they do is say anybody can be an MIT student, like Harvard Extension, and you take online courses. And if you do well enough in those courses for long enough, and you pass enough comprehensive exams, you can then go and graduate into the exclusive MIT that we think is MIT. Now, with the age of Coursera and all these universities already giving courses online, why would this be a problem? It's super easy to accommodate. And it's profitable too. And then you just have a dual brand like Harvard does with Harvard Extension. It's elitism. It has nothing to do with education, the thirst and desire for knowledge, or the merit of people. It has to do with everything about clubs. And are you in the special club or are you not in the special club? Why is humanity still there? We need to get beyond that and really reward people that do special things. And yeah, elite schools definitely do have billions. Last time I checked, the Harvard Endowment was $35 billion. But tell me about how they need money. Okay, what else we got here? What is a replacement for universities? Because without them, you won't have the peer review system used to prove Cardano. No, actually, that's not true. A lot of the peer reviewers are actually working in industry right now. These peer review committees are made up amongst domain experts, people who are recognized experts in their field. Computer science happens to have an outsized amount of PhDs working for organizations. So, for example, Simon Peyton-Jones works for Microsoft. He's a brilliant academic. And there are many who are in industry. Another example would be Sebastian Thrun and the whole Udacity project and the language stuff he does for Google. So these people can just as easily review journals and articles from an industrial position as they can from an academic position. And it's in the best interest of companies to write papers because it helps them validate the ideas that they have in an open way. So you don't need necessarily a university system to encourage peer review. It will remove the subsidies for non-productive peer review. So it is absolutely true that we will have less papers on gender studies and white privilege and these types of things. That work will be definitely at risk because that work does not present economic value. But we will have a lot more representation on engineering papers, in physics papers, and mathematical papers that are applied and directly related to product, which is industrial science. So there's a sociological question, a societal question. Is it good for society to subsidize these institutions to produce that kind of output? And it's not just going to hurt gender studies. There'll also be a lot less philosophy papers in general. And I would argue that would indeed hurt society. So it is in the best interest to subsidize these things. But then you have to ask yourself, this educational construct that we've layered onto the peer review construct and this university construct, is it necessary to have these things be vertically integrated, or can they be separated in a certain respect? Does that MSRI have to be connected to Berkeley? Or can they be connected or can they be successfully separated? And an interesting question unto itself as well. It's a policy and priority question societies have to make. Is there anything there? Perhaps. It says lag. It is. Okay, wait a minute. Looks like I'm here. Live stream. Okay. Well, all right. So anyway, as I said in the prior video, which was the wrong video, and now this is the video, that when you apparently have a stream problem with YouTube, you have no way of rejoining a stream you've been kicked out of unless you download third-party software. If there is a way, I'm not aware of it. I don't see the button. I'm sorry. I guess I'm inept here. Tech CEO, don't know what to do. But anyway, I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to end the stream on a good note. So I will bid you all adieu. I try to keep these things at 2 hours. I apologize for that, but I'm going to do some research into the streaming software, and I'm just going to start using third-party software instead of the YouTube web interface. It's crazy times we live in, crazy software. Thanks, YouTube, for not having a button I can click to rejoin the stream when I've been kicked out. So I'm right now using